Hello and welcome to On Second Street. It's well known that across Canada, the cost of living continues to be one of the top issues in this country. Today, we're going to talk about some policy changes that governments could make to help make life more affordable. And joining me to talk about this is Sabine El-Chidiac. She is the Canadian Policy Associate with the Consumer Choice Centre. Sabine, thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with us today about a bunch of different issues. For those who aren't familiar with the Consumer Policy Center, could you just tell us a little bit about your organization and what you guys do day in and day out?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on, Colin. So the Consumer Choice Center is a consumer advocacy group, and we're supporting consumer choice across the world. I happen to do so in Canada, where we have a lot of consumer choice issues that make life harder and less affordable for Canadians, which is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm really looking forward to speaking about that with you.
Okay, perfect. Choice is good. I like the sounds of that. I like the sounds more of affordability. Why don't we start off by talking about housing? I mean, your organization's talked about this a lot. Everyone in the country knows that housing costs are very expensive right now. Uh, the strange thing is that we're a country with a lot of land. We've got a lot of resources. We seem to have the conditions for to have enough housing, but we're not meeting that objective very well as a nation. What do you see as sort of the problems? Why are we struggling in this area?
Yeah, we're definitely struggling in this area, and it's going to be obvious from just talking to your friends and neighbors and your colleagues, and they're complaining, especially people around my age, trying to buy their first home. It's very, very difficult to do that, and a lot of blame has been put on immigrants by politicians, and I see that as a scapegoat for them because for many years they
Mm,
could have made better policies to help Canadians be able to afford their first home, and they just don't do it. Instead, they just use excuses that take the focus off of them. And there are two things that actually help alleviate the housing crisis, and that's building more
mhm,
homes, which seems pretty simple, and reducing red
mhm.
tape around that. Like in zoning and in other areas. And for building new homes, we have issues with exclusionary zoning rules, which means that the government is telling developers how much and what kind of housing they have to develop and where. And that's really difficult when the centralized government doesn't really know what's going on in neighborhoods, what people need. But a developer who's on the ground with people around them, they know what the market needs in that area. So making up those rules arbitrarily is very difficult and kind of scares people away.
Mhm.
Let's not talk about more about when they do decide to build something. It's so
Mhm.
hard with red tape everywhere. And let's say we want to move something from a consumer option of a place to live to a residential or an office setting to a residential setting. What happens is it
Mhm.
takes about 9 months, even after they put in their application to rezone, for them to actually get a response from the government, which is way too long. And for them to
Wow.
even get to that 9 month mark, developers have to submit things like an archaeological assessment, a natural heritage impact study. Like, this is two of many other studies and reports that they have to come up with for them to even get to that point where they have 9 more months to wait. So why would developers even choose to put that money and time into something like that? And the federal government released this housing plan in April. I'm sure you remember that. And one of my
Mhm.
favorite parts of that is that they're reintroducing the standardized housing design catalog that's similar to the ones Canada used in the 1940s. Like, that's what developers need. They need advice from the government, from houses from the 40s, to tell them how to do things. All they need is to be able to build. That's really all they
Yeah.
need.
The government got us into this mess. I'm not sure they're really in a position to be saying, here's what you should be doing to get out.
Not
But
at all.
let's go to just quickly, let's talk about the problem with getting these projects approved. Is the problem in your mind is primarily municipal, provincial, or the federal level of government where most of the problems are arising?
Believe it or not, it's on all three levels. So municipally, of course, there's a lot of red tape, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that are sort of called, NIMBYs, or not in my backyard. These are people that actually show up to these meetings and say, "I don't want this building built next to me because I think that it's ugly or it's going to hurt my property value or whatever." And those are the people that show up
Yeah.
to meetings and they get sometimes what they want. Provincially, there's a lot of deciding what gets built where all the time, and
Mhm.
federally, we have a lot of uh, you know, pushing into places they shouldn't be putting their nose into by telling people where and what to build as well, or encouraging people to build certain things because it'll make them look good perhaps at the next election, which is not what we need right now. We need people to find places to live.
Of course. All right. Well, listen, thanks for giving us a few thoughts on that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about something called supply management. We'll be back with more in just a minute.